Today, we're going to talk about some phrases, language, ways to kind of sort of build and elevate the narrative of your story utilizing the con languages that you have been creating, but more importantly, how to continue to create your con language and develop the way it interacts not only with the narrative of both the plot and story, but the characters themselves and the world building history. So today is the essential language phrases for storytelling. But Thomas, why do key phrases matter? Well, this is it adds the little bit of flavor. All right, spices it up, and it doesn't necessarily overwhelm the readers because they're small little moments that do big world building. It adds truth, it adds cultural nuance, it adds memorable moments because then you go, oh, that was different. That was different, and I enjoyed that. But there are different types of key phrases to develop in your world. We've talked about this in past videos, but let's go a little deeper. Greetings and farewells are some of the most common phrases in language. They reveal a lot about the culture as well, because something as easy as hello and goodbye can be as powerfully changing as buongiorno or arrivederci, right? Arrivederci, though, and buongiorno are more, how do we say, familiar. And then ciao is sort of like a casual bye, see ya, take care, or hello, how are you? And it's still ciao, ciao, buongiorno, right? Ciao. Right? Doesn't mean to eat. It's ciao. Okay. Um, so now this brings into question how formal are your greetings? How informal are your greetings? Okay. Are you can go, what about the day of time? You know, buenos noches, buenos tardes, buenos noches, buenos dias, buenos noches, buenos tardes, right? So now you get to say what time of day is it? What kind of, and this is the part of writing and working and building your language that allows you to do some fun dig deeping within the moment. So instead of figuring this out in the beginning, when you get there, especially, I'm not talking about like maybe your first and second drafts, but maybe a third draft, you can now say, all right, look, I have people actually saying hello and goodbye. Do they just say hello and goodbye, or are we adding some nuance to it? Is it buenos dias, buenas noches? There's a day, there's a time. Affectus uno más. All right, let's do another one. One more. Uh, so, but you can get as fun as, right? Maybe it's a casual greeting for friends or peers, where like maybe the phrasing for or bidding goodbye or hello, whatever the case may be, for like a desert people, right? They might say walk with the sun, but it could be walk with the sun just written so people know what it says, or you could say walk with the sun and use different variations of the word. All right, you could change the word up like ok is ahun, right? So ok is ahun, and that's me just breaking it up. So ok, right? So if we were looking at it, walk with the sun, right? And I'm just doing this in real time. So ok is ahun, right? So yeah. Ok is ahun, right? Ok is ahun. So walk with the sun is me just taking away the W, taking away they don't have W's. And then I took the TH away, and then I took the S away, but I pronounce it un instead of un. So ok is ahun, right? And that means walk with the sun. Okay. And you don't have to explain that when you're writing. You can just have them say ok is ahun. And then at one point or another, you could have somebody repeat. Eventually you could have somebody repeat just in the common tongue. So someone could be like, Ok is aun, right? And then they say, and may you walk with the sun, right? And now you have it. Or you could just say, Ok is aun. He said, praising him to walk with the sun in his native language. All right. And that's some fun you get to do with a simple goodbye or a hello, you know. And look, that took me 2 seconds. I just did that right now. I didn't have that pre-written, and that's how simple language creation can be. There is the engineered version of con language, and then there's the artistic version of con language. I don't even have to make rules for this. I could just, but because I did this, I can now start building my lexicon because now the is always going to be eh, right? But it's pronounced eh. So, ok is un, right? Okay. And e is always going to be as is. And the other fun thing I get to do now is I get to say, oh, when I'm translating words, I could just take away the W's, and maybe that's the deal, because now maybe let's see, water is now okay. So there you go, right? And you're not going to so water is not going to be order, it's going to be adder. So now water is adder. So if they say, the water, it'd be uh, adder, adder, which means the water, right? So you can start doing that and creating a language by just playing with just the simple rules like that. Okay. Um, but look, it literally creates a phrasing, you know. Anyway, all right. Common expressions. Again, we get back to thank you, please, excuse me. We've talked about how Spanish is gracias, which means thank you, but in reality, it's means grace. And then Arabic might be sukran, right? And then I believe it's followed by what is it? Jazilan, right? So sukran, jazilan, yeah. So sukran or sukra, right? Depending on its your phrasing or your accent. So those are all thank yous. So when you're writing your narrative and you get to a part where people are thanking each other, are they thanking them in their common tongue? And that's the thing, like they could say it, they could go gracias, and then someone could respond with, hey, no problem, you're welcome. And now people know that that word you created in the language means thank you, or is loosely translated to thank you, because remember, all languages are just loosely translated to something else, because we talk about it all the time. Gracias, in this playlist, gracias means grace. It doesn't actually mean thank you. It is loosely translated to thank you. Just like de nada doesn't mean you're welcome, it means of nothing. Like it was nothing. It meant nothing. It's okay. It's all good. Right? Same thing. Like grazie doesn't mean thank you. It means grace. Right? So again, it's a loose translation, but it is gracias is a way of saying thank you, right? It is the way. And when you're coming up with words, that's your job. Is like you're going, all right, now this is a loose translation. And that's why if somebody said in your language, let's say they said, unk au, right? Unk au, okay? And then somebody says, oh, no problem, you're welcome. Now you know unk au means thank you. Even I'm sorry or please, like por favor, por favore, por favora, por favor, por favora, hey, please. Right? Okay, these create cultural nuance. They create wonderful exchanges. And these are easy ways. They're easy words to kind of implement. If they're just kind of tossed in there, but they help build on your world and they help develop your language. Names and titles. All right, let's talk about names and titles. Let me put place this one here because I want to talk about this. Meow. All right. Hey, Tubester. So names and titles often carry significance, and from surnames to social ranks. Hey, baby. No, go away. Stay. Go away. What are you doing? I call her over. She goes away. All right. It's a cat, though. They're like, pet me. And they're like, hey. And they're like, get off me. Get off me. Anyway, so names and titles, for the cultural significance of it, they are binding to surnames, to connections of lineage, social rank, etc. The a common example would be Ericsson, right, or Ericsson, right? What does Ericsson actually translate to? It denotes lineage, son of Eric, right? Thor, Odin's son, right? Coulson, son of Coulson, right? Now, titles like Sir and Lady, they reflect social roles. So, what does that bring us to? I have a character named Eric Savak, right? Now, Eighth is his name. It's his first name, right? But he was trained by a character named Varric. So he gains the character's name in a variation, which is Eric, right? Eric. Okay. And he is from the house. Really, they're basically like hives. They're very I don't call them hives, but they're basically hives because he's an Akid. So he comes from Hive, and then Vak is basically the Hive name. So it'd be the same as saying from House Vak. It's saying Hive Vak, right? But Vak is just a variation on his queen mother. It's not his real mother, and I don't really call them queens, but for simplification for the explanation, they're queen mothers. So there's a queen mother of the Hive, and they basically rule over the Akids. So it's a matriarchy of the Akids have a matriarchy. But Eighth is his first name, and that's it, right? But because who you are trained by creates a secondary name, and then if you're from a hive in the Akid society, it isn't always Savak. It could be something else, but if you are taken away from a hive, you would lose that. If you didn't have a connection to a trainer or somebody that your mentor or something like that, that would be different. And why is that? Well, because in the Akid world, you don't necessarily have a mother and father, right? I may have talked about this in other videos, but the simplified version is Akids actually, the queen just lays eggs, and then the eggs form males. All right. However, uh, the queen also can lay a special eggs, which are smaller, and they place them in what's known as hatchers, which are men who are. There's a whole society for that, but I'm not going to explain all that right now. But the egg is placed inside them because their stomachs open up, and then the egg is like put into them, and then they hatch the women because they get nurtured and filled with all this nutrients, whereas the men are breeded through the eggs, and they are created. So they'll create like warriors or servants or whatever they need for their society. So there's not like a mother father relationship, so you don't really get a last name, a surname in that sense. However, all Akids can reproduce with any species, and they can mate traditionally as well. Um, so they have those because of their culture and their purpose, right? But they don't really do that, they won't have because it's considered a sin in their culture to be like, we're gonna have children, no, the queen must create the children, the and build on the hive and so forth and so forth. So there you go, eighth Eric Azha Vak, right? And that is the same as basically saying Ericsson. It's a long-winded version of saying son of Eric, but they're saying mentored by Varric, born of Vak, right? And that's basically a way of creating historical world for you. And this is a character that is in my second book. All right. And then, of course, what else? All right. Moving on, moving on. Prioritizing storytelling. So, when choosing which phrases to really develop and prioritize, like I say, you don't have to go deep diving into it before you write, but as you're writing, think about what appears within the dialogue. You can focus on phrases, characters' names, characters specifically. Religious characters might speak in the old tongue. Uh, Magical characters might speak in an older tongue, whatever the case. Regions will speak in different languages, but allow the movement to come out naturally. And when you get into certain areas, if you find yourself creating common phrases or common words or common greetings, you might say to yourself, do I need to call them kings? Can I change the way they work? I have a belief, a biased perspective belief on what kings and queens do. So can I take that and change what a king and queen is? Can I change the word king and queen? Great. Now I know it's majesty and sire, but can I change that? And you can, because it is all fake. It's fake in our real world, and we just agree with the terminology, and eventually have the majority rules, the mob rules, the majority rules on the definitions, and so forth and so forth. It is all fake, and as is your world, and you can literally do whatever you want. You also want to choose terms that reveal something about the world. So, from God terms, God prayers, God names, to regional. I've created flowers. We talk about this in other videos in this series. Spices, it's spices and fruit names. Maybe like, for example, the Velas, they have a ceremony which is based on their birthing system, which is also different than how you and I may have the children. But more importantly, uh, the Hamaran uh, only mate once every so often. They don't have a monthly cycle like the female Hamarans don't have a monthly cycle, because the world is filled with really old species. The Hamaran live your traditional, like, if they hit 100, that's a miracle. But the Velas can live thousands of years. The elves could live thousands of years. Akids could live thousands of years. So the way the world has adapted to that is that it doesn't allow for lots of procreation, right? But naturally, like the biological evolution is that there are breeding cycles. However, there are you can breed, and you can keep trying to breed, and that's how we create the populations and the people of the world. Um, and some try to like breed a lot, take over areas and stuff like that, and it's just what it is. Uh where are we? Where I want to talk about so the whoop, what did I do? Boop. Velas. The Velas. Velas. Because I want in the yeah, they're called Kim. There's a name for it. They have like a cocoons where they cocoon, and from that cocoon they can form into basically, or they reproduce. Like, I can't find it right now, but the for the Velas, there's a terminology for that cultural context, which is it's sort of their cocooning phase. So every 100 years, they will cocoon and then be born. They'll be reborn, and but they'll be born 10 years uh, older each time. So um, if I was born a Velas, a Chem, and I reach my 100th birthday or 100th year or whatever, my body starts cocooning, and then I'll be reborn as a 10-year-old, and then I will live for another 100 years from there. So the oldest I could get is 110, right? Then I'll cocoon again, and I'll come back as a 20-year-old, maintaining all the knowledge and wisdom of that past life. But these are considered new lives for the Velas. And then I'll be born a 20-year-old, but then I'll live another 100 years. So I'll live 100 years, but I'll be considered 120. Technically, I'm 200 and something at that point. And they just keep doing that, and they do that 10 times. And then once they hit their 10th time, if they do, not everyone does because it's hard to reach. You can die, right? They are reborn in something, but that process is called something very specific, and that becomes a cultural context. And of course, you always want words to support the plot when and where you can. All right, let's talk about the final thoughts. Final thoughts. Wait. Actually, integration. So once you've created key phrases, you do want to think about ways to kind of weave them in. Contextual translation. You could use context to convey meaning without direct translation. For example, whoop, you can have somebody say, "May the stars guide you," she said, pressing her palms together in a traditional gesture of parting. Right? All right. So now it's implied that she's saying goodbye, or that's their way of saying goodbye. Because of the traditional gesture of parting. All right. You can combine your con language with native languages, right? Right. You could have it go like this. The villagers shouted, Doric, Doric, the ancient word for freedom. And you can just explain it. You can do that. You know, I'm not really a fan of doing it that way. I like to sort of like let it feel lived. Like, for example, in my world, there's lots of gods. There are lots of gods, and there's different cultures and religions, and people say hello and goodbye based on their beliefs. Not everyone believes in the gods, which is funny. But does it's like, remember how like God be with you back in the day eventually became goodbye in the English language. Um, but for me, uh, here, let me post it up here. For me, in my world, if you worship Tochi, a god of nature or goddess, it depends on what you believe. Because Tochi is what I would consider has no gender, but people who believe in Tochi, because Tochi is literally nature. So it's the existence of nature. So people place their own beliefs on it. So some people say Tochi, she is always with you, or Tochi, he is always with you. But when you're saying hello and goodbye, it's may we be one with nature, and a person would respond with through nature we breathe as one. And that is that has two variations to it. The first one is when you say goodbye to someone, you go may we be one with nature, and then through nature we breathe as one. But it also is just sort of like a common a greeting of good blessing. Like you might pass each other in community and just be like, "Hey, Vru, may we be one with nature. Oh, nature, through nature we breathe as one." So that's something to think about when you're working with your language. Final thoughts, very simple. Um, every single detail that you create will be a strong growth to your world building. The smallest detail becomes the biggest growth. Whether it be just simple languages and goodbyes and hellos, or you're getting a little bit more complex. If you're having full conversations in a new language, which is also okay, you can write out weird words on your page as long as the POV that's listening doesn't understand it, and that is why they can't see the words. But put a little extra time into the smaller things, and you will absolutely have a bigger impact on how you approach your narrative. Even if you're writing a book that takes place in our world, in our present, and doesn't have any fantasticalness about it, we have these cultural truths with our languages. And that is how you should approach your world building, like you would approach you yourself as a character living within a world that you made up. If you know more than one language, that is a part of who you are, and how you utilize that language, where you utilize that language, and why you utilize that language is something you can think about when creating characters. All right. Next video is we're going to get a little bit crazy with the documentation and organization, how to manage your language. I'm going to take that sheet that is free and available in the folder, and we're going to go over basically how to start creating languages. We're going to show you, and then we're going to organize the languages just so you can see how the sheet works. Again, question, if you are getting something out of this video series and it's helping you think outside the box in a proactive way, but maybe there are things you want me to go deeper into, or there are things I haven't covered yet and you're interested in it, let me know, because I will be doing another 10 video addition to the series. So this 10 videos is basically mostly just the foundational elements of creating a language. The next 10 videos will be a mixture of play, where I'll get to play with language, but also where maybe I go over some stuff that needed a little bit more explanation. If you haven't done so already and you like what you've been listening to, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out. And as always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you. Bye.